Well, there are many teaching methods that are used in the world today, and many of these we see demonstrated in the Bible as well. One of these common methods is the method called compare and contrast. Jesus used this method when he talked about the parable of the talents, and he compared a good servant to an unfaithful servant. The Apostle Paul used it a lot when he was saying, do this, don't do this. Well, as we continue our series of the book of Proverbs, we're going to see that today, we're in chapter 11 of Proverbs. We're going to see that Solomon does a lot of comparing and contrasting, and specifically in the area of righteousness versus unrighteousness. And Solomon does it in four specific areas of life. So he takes four specific areas of life, and he kind of compares and contrasts the importance of righteousness and avoiding unrighteousness in each of these four areas. And before we get into the meat of the message here, I guess I should give a definition of what righteousness is. Righteousness basically is being right with God, behaving as God would have us behave, and basically being morally right. And some synonyms would be honorable, ethical, honest, true, good, and moral. So that's righteousness. Unrighteousness, of course, would be the opposite of all of that. When it comes to righteousness, and when it comes to living out these four areas that we're going to be looking at, we have a choice, right? Righteousness is a choice. We can choose to be righteous, to do what we know the Lord would have us do in a certain situation, or we can choose unrighteousness, which would be going the opposite of what God would have us do. So it's a choice. Every day we encounter situations where we have to make that choice. Am I going to deal with this in a righteous way, or am I going to deal with this in a not so righteous way, an unrighteous way? So let's take a look at Solomon's heavenly wisdom for our earthly living in these four areas of our life. If you're following along in the back of your bulletin, there are sermon notes. Area number one in your notes. Number one is righteousness in the marketplace. Righteousness in the marketplace. So turn to Proverbs Chapter 11. We'll be in there all the time. I have just a few verses that aren't in Proverbs 11 today. So Proverbs Chapter 11, verse 1. Proverbs Chapter 11, verse 1 says, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight." And then verse 3 says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." So you can see that compare and contrast. Here's a good thing versus here's a bad thing. So Solomon is telling us that we need to have righteousness or integrity in our dealings in the marketplace, in the workplace, if you will. So it doesn't matter what your profession is. You know, if you're selling goods and services, if you're having a yard sale, if you're selling a used car to somebody, if you're a rancher or a farmer, employee or employer, all of these marketplace activities, we need to be righteous in our dealings with other people. Now, Solomon says that a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And I have a literal example of this. When we lived in Leona Valley, California, Leona Valley was a rural area in northern Los Angeles County, and it was known for cherry orchards. Much like Palisade is known for its peaches, well, Leona Valley was known for its cherries. And they had sweet cherries, and then they had the sour pie cherries. And people came from all over Southern California during cherry season, and they were you-pick cherry orchards. So you would walk up, they'd give you a bucket, you would go out and pick all the cherries you wanted, come back, they weigh them, and then you pay a price per pound. Well, we got to know one of the owners of one of the orchards, and our oldest son, Zach, would go help him out. Before season, he'd go and help him tend the trees and clean the yards and stuff. And then once cherry season arrived and the customers started coming, and he was there kind of watching to make sure people weren't climbing in the trees and breaking branches and doing things they shouldn't be doing. And then Chris and our daughter Heather helped out at the checkout stand. And I helped occasionally, but they did most of that. And it was interesting. We asked people, or they would ask people, how did you find us? Well, why did you pick this orchard over all of the orchards there in Leona Valley? And it was interesting. Many of the customers said, oh, well, we come here because the owner has integrity. We can trust him. We know that his scale is accurate. And if you get 10.5 pounds, he'll only charge you for 10. He always rounds down. And he's just a very fair, upright person. And according to these customers, some of the other orchard owners in the area weren't so righteous. Their scales were turned up to where they weighed heavier than what you were actually getting. They didn't have the proper tare weight, of the buckets that they handed out. They said that they weighed, what would it be, less or more? Whatever was in their favor. And they would round up. If you had 12.5 pounds, they'd charge you for 13 pounds. So a literal example of a just scale, and the righteousness and that person being rewarded for their righteousness. But having a just scale or a fair balance isn't just literally about weighing out things, right? It's about dealing with people fairly, charging people a fair charge, or giving a good day's work for a good day's wage, however you want to put it. It's being righteous in your dealings with people in the marketplace. God is delighted when we have integrity in the marketplace. When we deal with others righteously in our business dealings, it's pleasing to God and it's honoring to God. So that's area number one, righteousness in the marketplace. Area number two that Solomon covers is righteousness in the community. Area number two, righteousness in the community. So it's in the community in general. So Proverbs Chapter 11, jump down to verses 10 and 11. Proverbs 11, verses 10 and 11. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. By the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is overthrown. So righteous people should uplift a community, right? They make the community better. People are happy to be around righteous people, but unrighteous people kind of bring a community down. And as God's people, our reputation in the community should be one of uplifting the community. People should be glad to have us around, and they should be sad if something happens to us. If we pass away or if we move away, they should be sad that we're not going to be around anymore. And look back at their time with us in a fond way, that, they really made a positive impact in the community. They were a righteous person. They made everyone around them better. Now, I'm not talking about those people who are anti-Christian, that they're unrighteous people that don't like righteousness around them. I'm talking about, the normal public who respond to righteousness. They want to be treated righteously. They want to be, looked at. They want to be treated the way you would want to be treated, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you kind of attitude. So we should have a good reputation in the community. The community shouldn't feel better off if we were taken away, right? And unfortunately, that's not always the case for Christians. I had an example when I was in Norwood. I was talking to some people. They were looking for help in some kind of business, and I happened to mention a Christian business owner that I knew that was in that line of work, and they said, "Oh no, there's no way I'd ever go to him." And they shared some negative experiences they had with him, and so I was reticent to, didn't really recommend him after that. And he was a Christian. He was active in the church and everything. And that should not be the case, right? If we are Christian out in the community, we should be good representatives of God. We should be righteous, and people should be happy to have us around. We should be a positive influence. So I wonder, what do people say out in the community when they hear the name Christ Church of the Valley? What opinion do they have of us? Do they have an opinion? Or are we the best kept secret in town? Right? Do they have an opinion? Or is it a good opinion of us, or is it a bad opinion of us? Are we known? I know inside the church we're very friendly. People who know us in these walls, that we're friendly, loving people, and amongst each other we have a reputation. But what's our reputation like out there? I forgot to grab one. Remember those little window stickers that I handed out? And I said, if you're a driver who incites road rage, we probably shouldn't put one of these on your car. Because once you put that sticker on your car, you're representing Christ and His church. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. What's the impression? Are we righteous? Do they see us as uplifting the community? Are we a light in the darkness? And when people think of Christ Church of the Valley, do they think of us in a positive light? Because whatever they think about us is how they're going to think about the Lord. So we need to keep that in mind. We need to live righteously. And if you have a sticker on your car, please drive righteously. Let's continue reading Proverbs 11:9. Proverbs 11:9 says, with his mouth the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. And then chapter 11, verses 12 and 13, whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. So here we're kind of not just the community, we're specifically talking about our neighbor. How do we deal with our neighbor? What's the neighbor's view of us? And I've got to admit, I've had a few dust-ups with neighbors. Neighbors can be hard. Dealing with neighbors can be hard. Most of my issues had to do with property lines, whether a fence should be where it should be, or whether someone should have access to a certain part of property or not, or they're loud parties. Right? How many of us have had to ask the neighbors to turn down that music, or some of us go to bed earlier than midnight. It would be nice if the music stopped before that, or barking dogs, or whatever issues we tend to have with people. All right, it's okay to have issues, but how do we deal with those issues? And neighbors, they're tough because they probably know us the next best knowledge of us than our family. Our family really know. We live with them all the time. They know our quirks, our good times, and our bad times. And our neighbors are similar. They see us at our best times, but they also see us at our worst times. When I get home and I'm tired, my guard is down, I'm a little more cranky, my fuse is a little shorter than it should be, and a dog bark when I'm in that mode might set me off, where when I'm fresh and rested, and a dog bark maybe doesn't bother me. Maybe I should, I might say something when I'm worn out that I wouldn't normally say. So they get to see us at our best, and they get to see us at our worst. And likewise, we get to see them at their best, and we get to see them at their worst. And so we may know some things about our neighbors that they may not want the rest of the neighborhood to know about. And to deal with our neighbor righteously would be not spreading those things around. Just because we know something doesn't mean we have to share that information. Right? We shouldn't be gossips. We shouldn't be tattling on our neighbors, if you will. The old joke, the three most effective ways to spread news quickly is a telephone, a television, and telegossip. Right? You tell the right or wrong person something, and it's going to spread all over the place. So, God doesn't want us to be that person that spreads gossip about our neighbors. there are times where we may know something we need to keep silent. We need to think, okay, if I was in that person's shoes, if they knew that about me, would I want them sharing it with other people? Now, if in doubt, remain silent. Don't share it. And so I guess the question for us would be, are you known for having your neighbor's back or stabbing your neighbor in the back? Right? Being righteous, living in the community and with your neighbors righteously is having your neighbor's back. Remaining silent when we need to remain silent. Don't be sharing information we shouldn't be sharing. Solomon says, a person of understanding remains silent. He who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. All right, that's area number 2, righteousness in the community. Area number 3, righteousness with our finances. Righteousness with our finances. So if you jump down to Proverbs 24 through 26, Proverbs 11, verses 24 through 26. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give, and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. The people curse him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. All right, so as Christians, we should be the most generous people in the community. Right? God has blessed us with much. We need to be generous with all that He has given to us. We should help those who are in need with physical needs. Whatever the physical need is, if there's financial need, whatever it is, we should be the first to be out there helping people who are in need. Solomon says, those who give freely have their needs met, while those who don't give continue to struggle. That is so true. Remember, Solomon's the wisest man who ever lived, and that is such a true statement. I have experienced that myself personally in my own life, and in Christian leadership, I have seen it over and over again in the lives of other people. If you are generous with what God has given you, He will entrust you with more. Now, I'm not saying that, if you give God $100, He's going to give you $10,000 back. I'm not talking that philosophy. But He will meet your needs if you put Him first. I've had people, I can't even count how many times I've had people come to me and say, Ken, we're really struggling. We just, what's the saying? There's too much month at the end of my money. I can't pay my bills. And one of the first things, as gently as I can, I ask them, well, are you being generous with God? Are you being faithful with God? Are you honoring God with your finances by giving to Him first before you pay any of your other bills? You set up a budget, you give to God first, and then worry about the rest of your bills, and He will help you out. And they say, well, I can't do that. We don't even have enough money to pay our bills. How can we give to God? And I ask them, well, have you ever thought maybe you don't have enough money to pay your bills because you're not giving to God? You're not honoring Him with what He has given you. All that you have belongs to Him. We talk about a tithe, and some people have a goal of getting up to the tithe. Tithe is the starting point. That's the Old Testament starting point. Everything we have belongs to Him. It's the first fruits. He gives it to us. We need to give back to Him a portion of it. Whatever you feel you want to give to honor Him, at least a tithe. You want to give to Him, honor Him, and He will honor you. He will meet your needs. Again, I'm not saying He's going to make you rich. We're not just talking prosperity gospel here, but He will meet your needs. It may not be the way you want it. It definitely won't be the way you expect it. But I promise you, if you honor God with your finances, if you are righteous in your finances, He will meet your needs. He will honor you. In my own life, there have been times when Chris and I struggled financially, or between jobs or whatever it was, And we continued to give. Now, the amount had to go down because our income went down, but we continued to give, and we saw him meet our needs in ways that we never thought possible. In one case, we had an old Jeep, and the tires were unsafe to the point where you could see the not the tread, the fiber, whatever it is. Steel belts were starting to show, so unsafe. So I don't know how we're going to pay for this, but we got to get it in, got to get some new tires. Took it in, and when we went to pick up the Jeep, the owner of the shop said, "It's been covered. Somebody came and paid for our tires. We don't know who it was. We don't know why, or didn't know how they knew, but it got taken care of." There was another time when, actually here in Montrose, the Walmart in Montrose, we had just a little bit of money to go get whatever food we needed for the rest of the week, but we were strapped. We barely had anything, and as got out of the car, a $20 bill just blew across the parking lot, right in front of our car. We looked around, there was nobody around, and it was so we were able to get $20 more groceries, and this was about 15 years ago, so it bought a little bit more than it did today. But that just crazy ways, we'd never think about that. But we've honored God with our finances, and He has provided. Again, maybe that provision is spam or whatever, but it's food. We always had food on the table. We're always able, and you do your budget, and it doesn't work out on paper. Right? It's like this. God, I don't know how we're going to do this. It's not going to work. It doesn't work out. But at the end of the month, all the bills are paid, and you look back and you don't know how, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work out. But if you honor Him, He will honor you. Or as Solomon says, those who give freely have their needs met, while those who don't give continue to struggle. Jesus taught the same thing in Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Jesus said, "Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." All right? Be righteous in your finances. Again, everything we have belongs to God. Now, there are some people who can be generous to a fault. We have to be good stewards of God's money, of the resources. Everything that God gives us, we need to be good stewards of. And that means treating it wisely. First, giving back to Him to support the ministry of His church, but also treating it wisely. There are con artists out there. And not every person standing on the corner near City Market or Walmart with the sign are truly in need. In fact, I would say very few of them are truly in need. It's a business. It's a scam. That's their livelihood. I've watched it myself at the Walmart in Delta. As I pulled in, of course, somebody called me, so I was in the car completing a phone call, and I saw this lady with a walker going up to people as they were getting out of their cars, begging for money. And then after she hit 3 or 4 people, as I was completing my call, I watched her, and she walked over to a part of the parking lot, pulls out his wad of cash out of her pocket, and adds what she had just gotten from those other people to it. And she was not truly in need, and she is there constantly. So we need to be wise, right? Wise as serpents, innocent as dove, right? Be generous, but not, but be wise about it. Not everybody needs the help they're asking for, I guess. But be good stewards of God's resources. Proverbs 11:15 says, "Whoever puts up surety for a stranger will surely suffer harm, but he who hates," there it is, "he who hates striking hands in pledge is secure." In other words, be smart about how you manage the Lord's money. Everything we have is His. Don't ever co-sign a loan for anybody, even if it's your family member, even if it's your kid. Don't do it. Don't co-sign a loan, because you are putting your name on that. You are responsible for the whole loan. Don't ever sign a co-sign. And Be wise with your dealings, your partnerships, your financial dealings with people. That's what it's talking about, striking a hand. If you hate striking a hand in a pledge, don't go into business with a non-Christian. That whole unequally yoked thing doesn't just apply to marriage, it applies to businesses as well. And just be wise. Be wise with how you handle the Lord's money. Okay, that's righteousness in our finances. Area number 4, righteousness in our pursuits. Righteousness in our pursuits. Back to Proverbs 11, verse 6. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lusts. And then verse 27. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. And verse 19, whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Remember, righteousness, being righteous, is a choice. And the things that we pursue in life are a choice. God has made our brains in a remarkable way that whatever we focus our brains on, whatever we fill our brains with and really focus on, we can achieve. So if we are filling our minds with unrighteousness and lustful pursuits, unrighteous pursuits, there's a good chance that we're going to achieve that. But likewise, if we fill our minds with righteousness, if we have righteous pursuits and doing good, and we're focused on doing good, then we will achieve that as well. It's a choice that we have to make to be righteous. If we focus on unrighteous behavior, if we dwell on evil thoughts, if we let filth into our minds, then guess what we're going to get? Unrighteousness, evil, and filthiness. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out. That's what we're going to get. But likewise, if we focus on righteousness, on godliness, on goodness, then that's what we're going to get. We're going to get righteousness, godliness, and goodness out. Put good in, you get good out. Proverbs 8:17 says, I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Right? We're setting our minds on those pursuits, and we will find it. Hebrews 11, verse 6, and without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. Well, we focus our mind on seeking him. Proverbs 11:20, those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Again, it all boils down to righteousness is a choice. And Solomon is encouraging us to have righteousness in these 4 areas of our life. We need to trust God. We need to trust his word and that his way is best. And righteousness is being right with God, being in sync with him, carrying out the things that he wants us to do as his children. And the good thing about that is not only is it good for us, God is glorified in the process. Right? We are his representatives. So the way the world sees us, his children, has a reflection on how they see him. Just like when people look at your children, that you're kind of judged as well. When they see them, they judge the parents. But when the world sees us, they're judging God as well. So we need to be good representatives. Live righteously for him. And really, the best way to live righteously, to make that decision in every area of your life is to follow the great commandment. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Right? That gets you focused on righteousness. And that helps you to choose righteousness.